welcome again. In this lesson, we are going to be looking into civil security approaches to threat mitigation, 1 and 2, right? So we are going to do a combination of 1 and 2, just to look into those key points in this topic, all right? So again, let's look into the intended learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to define the term civil security. You should be able to outline the various approaches to civil security, and you should be able to explain risk reduction as an approach to civil security and its elements. All right. So those are essentially the major points that we are going to be discussing in this presentation. Well, first, let's look into the meaning of civil security. This definition here is key, and of course, we are just going to make it your class activity to be sure that you are able to define civil security. Okay, so civil security is any conscious measures, right? Any conscious measure. It is consciously developed, taken by stakeholders, all right, members of a particular community, members who take decision in a particular community, right? The aim, of course, is to reduce vulnerability to security of the public. How? By enhancing the capacity of individuals to mitigate danger and security threats, as well as recovering from any form of security attack, whether those that are natural, right? Remember, natural security threat like hurricane, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunami, etc., or considered to be man-made. I hope you remember that. Examples: arson, robbery, blackmail, etc. Okay. Now, in general, civil security is, in a layman's explanation, just for you to understand, it has to do with those conscious measures taken by decision makers in a particular community, all right, those who decide, and the aim is to reduce those who fall victims to crime, all right, or vulnerability, to reduce the number of people who become victims, who become vulnerable to any form of attack or violence or threat, all right? And how do they do that? It is by enhancing the capacity of individuals, by making sure that individuals are capable of mitigating these dangers or the threat. Individuals are capable of resisting any form of threat by providing them with the right equipment, the right motivation, those things that they need to resist any form of threat, okay? As well as the individuals being able to recover from any form of security threat, all right? Whether it is man-made or natural security threat. That's a simple definition of civil security, okay? Right, so let's give you class activity to define that. You should know that it is important for you to know how to define civil security. So what is civil security? You must ensure that you know the concept of civil security. Now, let's look at the approaches to civil security. The approaches to civil security. First approach here is to reduce risk, all right? Risk reduction. How, in order to approach civil security, you must ensure that risk reduction is taken into consideration. How? By ensuring that you have risk education in place. And what is risk education? How do you conduct risk education? Risk education is a process of creating awareness, all right, letting people know about the dangers of a particular threat, okay? And aside from the awareness, another way is to transfer skills, possible skills on how to reduce risk, and of course to have people modify their behaviors to be able to reduce risk. Now, another approach is the elements of Okay. Sorry, this is not an approach. The elements of risk reduction. Risk reduction is the approach itself. Now we are looking at the elements of risk reduction. The first one is developing unclassified national intelligence. All right. In order to reduce risk, there must be an unclassified national intelligence unit where basic information about potential risk are being gotten in order to avert any type of potential risk. Scenario building in risk education, right? You need to build a situation where people get to know more about risk education. Then interactiveness in risk education. People should be able to discuss within themselves on how to avert risk. Then massification of risk education. The knowledge, the awareness about risk education should be done amongst the majority of the people. Then participant, all right? The people should be able to also participate actively in risk education. That's active participation of individuals in risk education. These are all elements of building a good risk in order to reduce risk. All right, so let's move on to the next one, the next element, preparedness. Preparedness, as the title implies, it's talking about being prepared ahead of the risk. All right, it's a method by which awareness and understanding supported by risk reduction or risk education can be translated into action. Right, so it is the method by which people get aware, they understand that a particular risk is about to happen, threat is about to happen. And of course, they get prepared in order to avert that type of threat. Now, elements of preparedness, dual use approach, there should be dual provision in order to avert that risk. Development of emergency preparedness materials, development and maintenance of sophisticated emergency response procedure, training and workshop tools for emergency workers, regular conduct of simulation. This is the one that I should explain. These other ones are self-explanatory. Simulation is to conduct an activity that tends to resemble the type of threat that is about to happen, so that people get to know how to avert or reduce. People get to know ways of not becoming victims, of not becoming vulnerable to that type of threat. Then educating the public. All right. So those are the elements of being of preparedness, of getting prepared. All right. So let's look into public. All right. Before I go, you can see this man here getting prepared, possibly because a warning has been issued of a potential threat that is about to happen, and so he's packing up and trying to evacuate that area. All right. Let's look at public warning. Public warning. I just mentioned warning. All right. Public warning is another element, another approach to civil security, right? Civil security. Public warning involves activities designed to alert the public. All right. This is the key word here. Alert, to alert the public on impending danger. So those activities that have been designed to alert the public to know that a danger is about to happen. You can see the speakers right here. By the time this is a way of communicating that warning to the people. Of course, the elements of public warning includes data collation, analysis, and decision making to issue the warning. So before the warning is issued, enough data, credible data would have been collected, analyzed in order to know the nature of the threat that's about to happen. And of course, once it is known, the warning has to be framed, all right, in the proper language that will get the people to understand. So the warning has to be framed before it is sent out, okay? And of course, credible sources, secured sources must be used to get the information, and of course, to also transmit the warning to the people. Then finally, transmission of the warning, all right, to the people not to fall victim. And of course, human attitude to warnings, again, has to be controlled. All of these are type of public warning. There are some people that once warnings are issued, they don't tend to respect it. So that human attitude has to be put into proper perspective. All right, let's look at protective action. That's another element, protective action. It involves the steps which the public can take to alleviate or reduce the adverse effects that any natural or and man-made security threats or hazards can have on them. All right, those steps that people take in order to uh, reduce, right, to reduce vulnerability, to reduce being victims. All right, and the first one is evacuation. They leave the area, then they are sheltering. They tend to get somewhere to cover themselves, the shelter. All right, then quarantine and shielding. Quarantine has to do with this has to do with that legal separation of those who are infected from others. Then it should be also medical countermeasures, individual protective equipment, like you can see here. All right, all of those are elements of protective actions. Well, you are highly encouraged to read more extensively into your study materials, all right, to get details again of what we have discussed here. And if you have questions, please feel free, send them across to me, and I will be very happy to respond to them, okay? Now take your class activity 2. List and explain the approaches to civil security. Just ensure that you are able to do that. Thanks for making it to the end of this lesson. Hopefully, I'll talk to you again in the next lesson. Okay? All right. Bye for now.